In the heart of Zimbabwe, a man who has long been labeled a dreamer, a disruptor, and even a maverick is once again making headlines that demand the world's attention. Maxwell Chikumbutso, the enigmatic innovator behind Seth Technology, has stepped forward with an invitation that could change not only the trajectory of his company, but potentially the future of energy and transportation as we know it. For years, whispers of his creations circulated across scientific circles and skeptical newsrooms. Vehicles that run without conventional fuel, generators that defy traditional principles, and buses that seemingly breathe life from the very air around them. Many dismissed it as too radical, too unconventional, and yet every test, every demonstration continued to silence critics one by one. Now, the story takes a new turn. Instead of simply proving the technology works, Maxwell is opening the door to those bold enough to walk through it. Investors, visionaries, and pioneers are being called to stand beside him, not as mere spectators, but as partners in building a future that no longer bends to the dictates of fossil fuel giants or power monopolies. His voice carried both urgency and confidence as he revealed what lies ahead: the expansion of Seth Technology into new territories, the scaling of machines once thought to be impossible, and the establishment of factories that could bring these innovations to the masses. The room fell silent as he detailed the scope of what was coming. This was not a plea, it was a declaration. The opportunity was not just about profit, it was about rewriting history. Imagine cities with fleets of buses gliding quietly, never stopping for fuel, schools powered day and night without paying a cent to an electric grid, rural communities in Africa lit up for the very first time, and households across the globe freed from the burden of skyrocketing energy bills. This was not theory anymore. Prototypes were already humming, cars were already driving, and power units were already sustaining entire buildings. And yet, behind the groundbreaking science was a simple truth Maxwell reminded everyone of: innovation cannot thrive in isolation. To take this leap from invention to global transformation requires more than brilliance, it requires belief, courage, and investment. He locked eyes with the crowd, speaking directly to those who had long searched for a chance to be part of something greater than themselves, something that would outlive them. He spoke of the future of Seth Technology not as a dream, but as a living reality waiting to be scaled. The patents, the breakthroughs, the field tests, everything was ready. What he needed now were hands willing to build, minds ready to expand, and hearts willing to risk for a cause that could shift the balance of the world's power. As he raised his hand toward the projection of his machines, sleek vehicles, self-powered generators, and massive buses, one could sense the weight of history pressing against the present moment. The invitation was clear. This was the time to choose: to remain part of the old system, chained to fuel and dependency, or to step into the unknown, where the impossible had already been made real. The silence in the room deepened, as if the very air itself was waiting for the first hand to rise, the first voice to say yes. A man in a tailored grey suit leaned forward, his pen tapping lightly on the polished table. His expression was unreadable, but his eyes betrayed a sharp curiosity. For a moment, he glanced around at the others in the room. Some were skeptics still nursing their doubts, others visibly restless with excitement. Finally, he broke the silence. "Maxwell," he said, his voice calm but firm, "if what you've built truly works on a scale that can serve millions, then this isn't just another business pitch. This is history in the making. But history demands proof. Show us what no one else can." Maxwell nodded slowly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. It wasn't the first time he'd heard such a challenge, but this time felt different. This wasn't a quiet lab in Harare, or a small demonstration before curious engineers. This was an international audience of people who could fuel his vision with capital, influence, and infrastructure. He raised a hand, and almost on cue, the side doors to the hall opened. A team of assistants wheeled in a sleek generator unit, compact, metallic, humming softly like it carried a secret. The investors leaned forward, their eyes narrowing with anticipation. Without connecting it to any visible fuel source or grid, Maxwell's team flipped a switch. Instantly, the hall's massive screens flickered alive, lights brightened, and a cooling system roared to life, all powered by the silent machine at the center of the room. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The man in the grey suit froze, his pen now still. Another investor, a woman known for her aggressive bets on disruptive technology, whispered audibly, "It shouldn't be possible," but the evidence was right in front of them. Maxwell didn't revel in the awe. Instead, He stepped closer to the device, placing his hand firmly on it as though introducing an old friend. "This is not theory," he said. "This is not wishful thinking. This is power, clean, continuous, and free from dependence on any fuel. And this is only the beginning." The air grew heavy with possibility. Some scribbled notes furiously, others exchanged glances filled with the electric charge of opportunity. A few skeptics, though quiet, still clung to disbelief, their silence more telling than their words. Then came the moment that shifted the room entirely. Another door opened, and a bus, sleek, modern, and branded with Seth Technologies insignia, rolled forward silently, powered only by Maxwell's system. Its headlights cut through the room like beacons of a new era. Investors rose from their seats instinctively, pulled forward by something larger than financial gain, the undeniable sense that they were standing on the edge of a turning point for humanity. Maxwell's voice carried above the growing murmurs. "I am not asking you to imagine the future. I am showing it to you. The question is not whether it works. The question is whether you will be bold enough to stand with me and build what comes next." The crowd erupted into whispers, some urgent, some incredulous. Hands went up, questions ready, demands for figures, projections, and timelines. But behind all the noise was a single unspoken truth. Those who moved now could carve their names into history, while those who hesitated might watch the world change without them. One of the investors raised his hand, his voice cutting through the buzz like a blade. "Impressive showmanship, Maxwell. But spectacle is not business. Numbers speak louder than lights. What are your margins? How scalable is this? Can you manufacture at the volume the world demands, or is this just another prototype meant to dazzle us for one night?" The room grew tense. Some nodded in agreement, eager for hard data, while others frowned, unwilling to dismiss what they had just witnessed. Maxwell's expression did not falter. He stepped forward, his eyes locked on the questioner, and spoke with the calm precision of a man who had rehearsed this moment countless times. "You are right. Spectacle alone builds nothing. But the figures are as disruptive as the technology itself. This bus, powered entirely by my generator, costs less to operate in a month than a diesel bus does in a single day. Production can begin on a small scale within months. With the right partners," his gaze swept across the room, "we scale to cities, then nations. Every step funded by the savings of those who adopt it." The woman investor who had whispered earlier leaned forward now, her eyes burning with a different kind of hunger. "If this is true, then you're not just competing with oil. You're threatening the infrastructure of entire industries. Energy grids, fuel supply chains, even governments. Do you understand the forces that will come after you?" A murmur rippled again, sharper this time, like the hiss of a storm building at sea. Some investors shifted uncomfortably, imagining lawsuits, political pushback, even sabotage. Yet Maxwell did not retreat. His hand pressed more firmly on the humming machine beside him, as though it grounded him. "I am not blind to the risks," he said. "But ask yourself, what force is greater, fear of disruption or the demand of billions for energy they can afford? I did not come here for protection. I came here for partners who believe that progress cannot be chained by old empires. Together, we are not just building a company. We are liberating power itself." The words hung in the air like sparks in a dark room. One by one, investors exchanged glances, not all convinced, but undeniably shaken. Some were calculating profits, others weighing risks, but all of them could feel it. This was more than business. This was history knocking at the door. And then, almost theatrically, the bus engine hummed louder, its systems engaging fully, screens inside lighting up to show live telemetry. No fuel, no exhaust, just motion born from nothing but Maxwell's invention. The crowd instinctively rose to its feet. The man in the grey suit, who had started as the sharpest skeptic, finally whispered, "If this scales, Tesla, Exxon, Shell, they all fall." A silence followed, deeper than before, as though the room collectively realized the enormity of what stood before them. This wasn't just an investment pitch anymore. This was a battle cry for the future. Phones began buzzing across the room as journalists and analysts who had been quietly invited started firing off rapid notes, snapping discrete pictures, and sending the story out into the wild. Within minutes, headlines began to appear on financial news sites, notifications lighting up screens. African inventor challenges global energy giants, fuel-free bus demonstration stuns investors in live event. Could this end oil? One investor excused himself, stepping into the hallway, already on a call. His voice carried faintly back through the door. Yes, buy everything related to Seth technology now before the market opens in Asia. Another scribbled furiously in a leather notebook, her mind not on the bus anymore but on the geopolitical aftershocks. She knew governments would scramble, some to support, others to suppress. Inside, Maxwell remained calm as the storm built outside. The machine behind him hummed like a silent revolution, a sound now impossible to ignore. "You are all visionaries," he said, looking across the crowd. "And you know as well as I do, revolutions do not wait for permission. You can either join me and shape this future, or you can watch it pass you by while others take the lead." A hand shot up, then another. Questions turned into heated debates. Some spoke of logistics, distribution channels, and international patents. Others worried openly about retaliation from fossil fuel lobbies or hidden forces with too much to lose. But threaded through the arguments was something undeniable: excitement. The kind of excitement that made fortunes, rewrote industries, and changed the course of history. By the time the lights dimmed and Maxwell stepped away from the stage, the world outside was already roaring. Social media feeds were ablaze with shaky video clips of the bus running without a drop of fuel. Hashtags trended across continents. Analysts on late-night broadcasts argued over whether this was the dawn of a new age or a clever illusion. Oil futures began to dip as whispers of disruption turned into panic. And as Maxwell walked out into the cool night air, his phone vibrated with a call from an unknown number. He answered, his voice steady. On the other end, a voice spoke with measured calm, the kind of tone that carried both power and warning. "Mr. Chikumbutso, you've just set the world on fire. But do you understand the forces you've awakened?" Maxwell paused, his grip tightening on the phone. The silence between him and the voice on the other end stretched like a wire pulled taut. "I've understood the risks from the very beginning," he replied calmly. "But the world can no longer afford to be held hostage by outdated systems. If disruption is the price, so be it." The voice gave a low chuckle, neither mocking nor friendly, more like someone impressed by a worthy opponent. Brave words. But bravery has cost men their lives before. There are those who will not let this technology live freely. Oil giants, defense contractors, entire governments. You've made them vulnerable, and vulnerable powers strike back. The line clicked dead before Maxwell could answer. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, his expression unreadable. Yet behind his eyes, the weight of history pressed down. He had expected resistance, but to hear it come so soon, so directly, only confirmed how seismic this breakthrough was. By the next morning, headlines weren't just excited, they were polarizing. Some hailed him as a savior of the planet, a hero who might finally tip humanity toward clean, unlimited energy. Others painted him as a fraud, a con-man exploiting hope in desperate times. Talk shows filled with analysts debating whether Seth technology was the next Tesla or the next scandal. In Washington, a closed-door meeting convened at dawn. A senior advisor slid a tablet across the table to a circle of officials. On it was shaky footage of the self-powered bus, shared millions of times online. "If this is real," the advisor said gravely, "our energy economy isn't just threatened, it's obsolete. Oil, gas, even nuclear, this undercuts them all. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with." Meanwhile, in Riyadh, a very different conversation was unfolding. Oil magnates sat in hushed tones, fury flashing in their eyes. Billions of dollars in future revenue hung in the balance. One man finally spoke what all were thinking: if this spreads, we lose everything. Stop it before it grows. And across Silicon Valley, venture capitalists were already plotting. Meetings were called, teams dispatched, checks prepared. "We don't need to own it," one billionaire mused, leaning back in his chair. "We just need to control who does." Unaware of the details but fully aware of the stakes, Maxwell prepared his next move. He knew the storm was coming. Investors with sharp smiles, governments with hidden agendas, corporations with endless reach. But he also knew something else. For the first time in history, the balance of power was shifting toward those who had never held it before. And as dawn broke over Harare, his hometown, crowds gathered outside Seth Technologies' gates, ordinary people, students, engineers, farmers, all chanting his